Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name's Calvin. What happened to me recently shook me so deeply, I figured I had to let it out. What my girlfriend said to me, in front of a room full of people during a party she planned for me, was something I'll never forget. Not just because of how embarrassing it was, but because it was the moment everything in my life shifted. One sentence out of her mouth made me realize I had been living in denial for way too long. Before I get to that part, though, let me walk you through how things got to that point, because looking back now, I realize the signs were all there. I just didn't want to see them. I've always been the quiet type, but my girlfriend Juliana is the complete opposite of me. We've been together for 5 years, and we've lived under the same roof for 3. From the beginning, I was drawn to her energy. She laughs loudly, talks fast, and doesn't hesitate to say whatever's on her mind. People love her instantly, and she's the center of attention almost everywhere we go. And at first, I thought maybe that balance between us would work. Opposites attract and all that. For a while, it did work. She made me come out of my shell a bit more, and I gave her the grounding she sometimes needed when her energy got a little too wild. But over time, I started to notice the cracks. I couldn't help but wonder if we were really aligned for the long run. Now here's the thing. I've been thinking about marriage. A lot. I even went ahead and bought the ring. It wasn't a rushed decision either. I thought about it for months, but lately things have not been the same. Juliana just stopped wanting to be close, both physically and emotionally. I know life can get busy, and sometimes affection takes a back seat, but weeks turned into months, and every time I reached out, she'd gently pull away or pretend she didn't notice. I wasn't trying to force anything. I gave her space. I was patient. But no matter how softly I tried, she'd always dodge me, sometimes with a laugh, a quick excuse, or a not now. And the more it happened, the more I started to question myself. Was I doing something wrong? Had I become unattractive to her? Or was I just being paranoid, seeing problems where there were none? But then came the night that really flipped something in my head. We had been invited to this event. It was supposed to be a fun night out. A friend of hers was celebrating something, and I figured we could use a break and reconnect. From the moment we got there, I noticed she was drinking more than usual, bouncing from group to group, louder than I'd seen her in a while. I stood back and watched, giving her space to enjoy herself, but then it just got uncomfortable. I saw her flirting with a male server. Then the music started, and she took to the dance floor. At first it was just dancing, but soon she was moving too close to other guys, trying to grind them like I wasn't even there. I felt this mix of shock, embarrassment, and something deeper I couldn't name. Everyone could see it, and I didn't want to make a scene, but I had to do something. I quietly took out my phone and started recording because I needed proof that what I was seeing was real. Eventually, I walked up, put my arm around her, and guided her out of there. She was tipsy, laughing like nothing was wrong. The next morning, I waited until she was sober. I made her some coffee and sat her down and told her how I felt, how what happened at the event really hurt me and made me feel disrespected. She looked me dead in the eye and said she didn't remember any of it. She acted like I was exaggerating. That's when I pulled out the video. I figured showing her would at least help her understand why I was upset. But instead of apologizing or explaining, she flipped it on me. She said I betrayed her, that I used her vulnerable state against her, that a real man would have protected her instead of spying on her. I couldn't believe it. I sat there stunned, watching her twist everything around until I started wondering if I had overreacted. That moment stuck with me, not just because of what she did, but how easily she turned it all around. I almost left her that day, but I couldn't. I was still in love with her, and even though my gut was screaming at me, my heart kept making excuses. After that argument, things didn't go back to normal. We were still sharing the same space, sleeping in the same bed, but it was like there was this invisible wall between us. We barely talked unless it was about something practical. And when we did talk, her tone was clipped, impatient, like I was annoying her just by existing. I noticed she became more protective of her phone. She started carrying it with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. It wasn't like that before. She used to leave her phone on the table, open, unlocked. We didn't have anything to hide. But now, it felt like I was living with a stranger who had secrets she didn't want me to know. Then came the nights out. More of them. At first, she said it was just work stuff or meeting up with girlfriends. But the explanations got vaguer over time. Just out. Don't wait up. It's nothing serious. Sometimes she'd come home past midnight. I didn't confront her, not because I was okay with it, but because, honestly, I didn't have the energy anymore. I had already given so much emotionally, and after the way she turned things around on me last time, I just shut down. We weren't a couple anymore. We were just two people occupying the same space. Out of nowhere, on a random Tuesday night, she came home early and said she wanted to talk. She apologized, said she was sorry for how she'd been acting. She promised me she'd never drink like that again, claimed that what happened at the event opened her eyes, and that she wanted to be better. I looked at her for a long time, wondering if I should believe her. She looked sincere. And after 5 years together, 3 of those living under the same roof, I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. I still remember the good times. Part of me wanted to believe that the woman I fell in love with was still in there somewhere. But even after that apology, something inside me wouldn't settle. I kept thinking back to that night at the event, not just the dancing or the flirting with strangers, but one moment in particular. She had walked over to one of my friends, someone she always claimed to dislike, and started flirting with him, right in front of me. At the time, I chalked it up to her being drunk and maybe trying to make me jealous. We had a small argument earlier that day, so I figured it was her way of getting back at me. But now, I wasn't so sure. I had to pull her away from him by stepping between them and asking her what the hell she was doing. She just laughed it off like it was a joke. But that moment stuck with me. I started wondering if something had already been going on between them, something she never told me about. I thought about checking her phone, and I did try once or twice. But she was always one step ahead. Lock screens, hidden apps, passwords changed. Eventually, I just gave up trying. Day by day, the gap between us widened. We weren't loving. After everything that had happened between us, I wasn't expecting much for my 33rd birthday that was coming up. Honestly, I'd gotten used to low expectations when it came to Juliana lately. I figured she might say happy birthday in passing or maybe order some takeout. That's the kind of routine we'd slipped into. But instead, I came home from work and opened the door to a wall of people yelling, "Surprise." It caught me completely off guard. Our apartment had been transformed. Balloons everywhere, a huge "Happy 33rd Birthday, Calvin" banner hanging from the ceiling, drinks on the table, music playing, and what felt like every friend and acquaintance I'd ever had packed into the room. At first, I just stood there blinking, trying to process what was going on. Then I saw Juliana front and center, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. She ran up to me, kissed me on the cheek, and handed me a drink. I'll admit, it was a lot. Part of me was touched. She had gone out of her way to organize all of this. It looked like she'd been planning it for weeks. But another part of me felt completely out of place. I've never been the type who enjoys being the center of attention. I'm not the party guy. I don't like big scenes. That's more her style. She feeds off social energy. I, on the other hand, usually need a breather after small talk. So while everyone else was having a good time, I stood off to the side, smiling politely and nodding my thanks. At one point, I reached into my pocket and felt the small engagement ring box I'd been carrying for a while. I stared at her from across the room, watching her. I thought, maybe this is the right time. But I couldn't ignore my gut telling me to wait. So I left the ring in my pocket, took another sip of my drink, and kept watching from a distance. Soon, Juliana clinked her glass and grabbed the microphone someone had set up for speeches. I watched her walk up to the front of the room, slightly tipsy, but still steady. She smiled, adjusted her hair, and started speaking. At first, it sounded like the usual birthday toast. She said she was proud of me. Talked about how far we'd come together. Everyone was listening, smiling, even clapping. But then she changed direction. She looked straight at me and said, half laughing, that lately, she saw me more like a brother than a lover. The room went quiet for a beat, and then a few people gave this awkward chuckle, like they weren't sure if it was a joke or not. I tried to keep my face neutral. Then she kept going. Said she wished I were her brother instead of her partner. Said the romance had died a long time ago. Admitted that she stayed because life with me was easy. I gave her stability, support, and everything she needed, but not what she wanted. I looked around the room to gauge the mood. But Juliana just kept talking, oblivious to the weight of her words. She thought she was being funny, but all I heard was humiliation, betrayal, disrespect. I didn't say a word. I simply put my drink down on the nearest table, turned around, walked to the door, and left. Because in that moment, I realized the truth. I was nothing more than a comfortable seat in a life she didn't value. And I was done sitting in it. When I left the party, I didn't know where else to go. I couldn't bring myself to go back to our apartment, not after what had just happened. So, I found a nearby hotel and checked in. I needed space to breathe, to think, to be alone. I thought I'd get some sleep, but my mind wouldn't shut off. Hours went by, and my phone began to blow up. Messages from Juliana, missed calls, voicemails. I could feel her desperation through every message. I wanted silence, so I turned the phone off. The next day, I forced myself to turn my phone back on. And of course, there were even more messages, each one more frantic than the last. I didn't reply. What was there to say? The damage was done. Still, I knew I couldn't avoid going home forever. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew the confrontation was coming. When I walked through the door, Juliana was there. The first thing she did when she saw me was try to act like nothing had happened. She played it off like I'd just left for no reason. She asked, almost in a whisper, "Why did you leave? What happened?" I looked at her, took a deep breath, and said, "I accept to be your brother, as you wanted." She froze. Then she looked at me like I was speaking in another language. "What are you talking about?" "I never said that," she replied, her voice a mix of confusion and frustration. I couldn't help but laugh. I reminded her of her exact words at the party, the way she'd said she wished I were her brother instead of her lover, how she admitted the affection had dried up. She had painted a clear picture for everyone in that room, and now she was trying to pretend like it was all a joke. "Don't fake love," I told her. "It's clear you're with me for comfort, not connection, and I'm not okay with that anymore." She looked taken aback, but she didn't deny it. At first, she tried to backpedal, claiming I misunderstood her. But as the seconds dragged on, her face softened. Her defenses came down, and she finally admitted it. Her voice barely above a whisper, "I don't feel romantic love anymore, but I still respect you." There it was, the truth. I'd known this was the case for a while. I just needed to hear it from her. I knew what I had to do. I didn't want to drag this on any longer. "We can't keep going like this," I said. "The apartment is rented. Either you move out or I will." Her face crumpled. She started crying, begging me to stay, begging me to work things out. But I couldn't believe her anymore. I couldn't keep living in a relationship where the affection had died, where I was nothing more than a convenience. I watched her, saw how hard it was for her to accept that this was happening. It was clear she didn't want to leave. But at that moment, I couldn't stay any longer. So I packed up my things, gathering everything I needed, and I walked out the door. After I walked out, the days that followed were quiet. I spent a lot of time thinking, reflecting. I couldn't help but go over everything that had happened, trying to figure out where things went wrong. The whole relationship felt like it was built on the foundation of mutual respect and love at first. But over time, those things just disappeared. Looking back, I realized the turning point came when intimacy started slipping away. It wasn't just the physical part of it, although that was a clear sign. I just let it slide. I should have said something then, but I didn't. And then there was the disrespect. When someone starts disregarding your boundaries, making you feel small or less than, it chips away at the relationship. I think that's when the cracks first appeared. But I never really acknowledged them. I kept thinking I could fix things, that things would get better. But they didn't. I regret not leaving earlier. I could have saved myself a lot of pain if I had been more honest with myself and with her. But I'm not going to beat myself up for it. I stayed because I thought I could make it work. I stayed because I loved her. But now, looking back, I know that walking away was the right choice. It hurt, but it was necessary. Staying would have meant sacrificing my own dignity and happiness, and I couldn't do that anymore. And if there's one thing I can say to anyone watching this, it's this: don't ignore your gut feelings. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Your intuition is there for a reason. If you feel like you're being treated like an option or just a convenience, that's because, at some point, love stopped being the foundation of your relationship. People who twist situations to make you feel like the villain are just trying to manipulate the narrative. It's not your fault, no matter how hard they try to make you believe otherwise. I've learned that love is more than just staying in something for the sake of comfort. If you're not treated with respect, if the love isn't there, then it's not worth fighting for. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to walk away, but it's also the most empowering thing you can do for yourself. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope it resonated with some of you out there. If you're going through something similar, just know that you're not alone. If you found anything useful in this, hit that like button and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Take care of yourselves, and remember, your happiness is worth fighting for.